Welcome back to my YouTube channel. You are now tuned in with the modern day Moses, and we're back with another video. And I said no, I'm joking. Today's video is an important topic. It's the beginning of our Live in Abundance series, the beginning of our Live in Abundance lifestyle. Last week I dropped episode 1, the intro. It basically tells you everything that we're going to be doing in this new series called Live in Abundance. Today is episode 2, and it's all about the emergency fund. So before I jump into the video and dive straight into the emergency fund, I want to go ahead and tell you what we're going to be talking about today. The importance of an emergency fund, starting an emergency fund, and what is considered truly an emergency once we get our emergency fund. Where to store our emergency funds. And since this is our first episode on emergency funds, this is what we will call a beginner's emergency fund. I'll explain what that is. And I will give you some tips and pointers on things that you could do to start right now in order to get you an emergency fund established. And before we begin, make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms at the modern day Moses with 3 S's, because it's all about the Trinity. And also make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post bell notifications so you can stay in tune when I drop a new video. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and talk about the importance of an emergency fund. I'm pretty sure everyone heard of the topic, an emergency fund, before, but if you haven't heard of an emergency fund before, an emergency fund is money that you have set aside in order to protect you from life surprises. Because we never know what tomorrow may bring. Tomorrow's not promised, and we don't know what's going to be around the corner. Today we might be up. Tomorrow something may happen and we're down. When you're faced with life's unexpected events, you can be ready. And that's really the importance of an emergency fund, because life unexpected events can vary from different things. You could get sick, go to the hospital, insurance pay their part. Now you're left with maybe a $4,000, $5,000 hospital bill that you didn't plan for. Job loss. Depending on where you stay here in Florida, it is an at-will employment type state, meaning your job could terminate you without warning and without cause, or just cause, as long as it's not illegal. So one day you go to work, the next day you get fired. You know the economy that we have been in since 2020. Jobs are being lost. Places are saying they're hiring, but they're not actually hiring people. You might get terminated, might get laid off, might get furloughed. So you want to have some money set aside for job loss. Dental emergencies, we spoke about medical emergencies. Car troubles is another thing that is life unexpected events. Every time you get in the car and you start it, you don't really say, oh man, I hope my car starts today. You automatically assume it's going to start until that day it don't. Or you might get in a car accident, God forbid, you might get in a car accident, you got to pay your part of the deductible, or tire blown out, you got to cover the tire, mechanic repairs, whatever it comes to with the car. That's an unexpected event as well. You never know what's going to happen. So having an emergency fund helps you really cover life unexpected events. And today we're focusing on our beginner's emergency fund, but later down the road, we're going to go ahead and beef up our emergency fund. And once we have our emergency fund in place, it's going to give us a confidence that we could tackle any of life unexpected events without adding money to our list of worries. Imagine how I feel going to a job that you may hate, you may not like, or just going to a job in general, and they say, hey, we're going to have to let you go today. And you have an emergency fund, let's say 6 months worth of expenses. You think you're going to be stressed about losing that job? No, you're going to have time to find you a job that you prefer versus finding a job out of desperation. So these are all great things and all the right reasons we should have an emergency fund. So let's go ahead and jump into the next part, which is starting our emergency fund. So a fully funded emergency fund is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And if you are the overachiever, you can have a year worth of expenses saved in an emergency fund. With the 3 to 6 months or more worth of expenses set aside in your savings account, I want to let you know that this isn't investment money, nor is this spending money for splurging or anything like that. This is considered insurance. Just think about it. Home insurance, car insurance, you pay monthly premiums in order to be covered, in order to be protected. Same thing with your emergency fund. This money is to protect you from whatever happened. And that's a fully funded one. But today we're only focusing on the beginner's emergency fund, which is going to be $1,000. And I know it seems like a big number. And to some, it may be a big number. To some, this may be the most that you ever save, but trust me, the $1,000 is just the beginning of our abundance lifestyle. The $1,000 helps, one, change the behavior and allow us to know that we're able to do this, but also two, it gives us a peace of mind that as we get out of whatever circumstance we're currently in to start our abundance lifestyle, that we have a nice little cushion to fall back on in case anything happens, in case of emergency, no pun intended. So today we're focusing on $1,000. If it's a big number, you could break it down. We are going to break it down. $100 in 10 weeks, $500 bits, like divide by 2, like just break it down to a small portion. One of my favorite quotes is, how do you eat an elephant? $1,000 might be the size of an elephant to you. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we're going to put one foot in front of the other until we achieve our goal of $1,000. And just like I told you in episode 1, I'm doing it as well. And now you're probably wondering, where are we going to store this emergency fund? And I'm glad you asked. So we're going to store this emergency fund in an account. That way it is liquid and easily accessible to us, but not easily accessible where we could spend it. So for me, I'm setting up my emergency fund in a separate banking account. So I have my primary bank. Where all of my deposits and I use my cards to pay for things out of. And then I'm going to set up another account for the emergency fund only. You don't want to store your emergency fund in your primary account because that's too liquid. That's easily accessible where you can just transfer it to your checking account and now you're already spending that money. So you want to make sure that you store your emergency fund in a place where it's accessible, where you could get to it in 24 hours or less, or maybe 48 hours or less, but it's not accessible where you could like, oh, let me just swipe my card in order to get it. So what I personally recommend and what I do is for the emergency fund that I'm going to start with you guys, and I'm going to show you where it's going to be at as well. I'm going to have it at my second bank. It's a credit union called Navy Federal, where it's going to be in a savings account that the only way I can access it is via ATM card. And this ATM card does not have privileges where I could spend it as in, oh, let me go to the store, swipe the card and pay for an item. Don't work like that. The card is only usable at the ATM. So that is my method. That is my plan in order to keep my emergency fund separate from my other funds. And later down the line, we're going to talk about bank account management. So please be on the lookout for that video as well. There's some things that you can do right now in order to start saving on your $1,000 because we want to get our $1,000 as quickly as possible. I would say within 2 months or less, honestly. And I feel like that's even being super nice, I guess, for lack of words, being super nice. But you should want to get your $1,000 as soon as possible because we need this cushion so we can focus on the rest of our financial plan in order to live a life of abundance. That's what this series is all about. Here's some things you could do that you can start right now in order to help fund our beginner's emergency fund. 3 different tips. Step 1, tip 1, ideal 1. Use your talents. We all are talented. We are gifted. We all have been given gifts by God that some don't have. So whatever your talent is, put it to use. If you're good at sewing, make some things. Get paid for your services to fund your beginner's emergency fund. If you're good at photography, create a side hustle. Take some photos, get paid for your service in order to help fund your beginner's emergency fund. For people that are good at graphic designs, make some flyers, make some business cards, get paid for your service, create a side hustle out of it. There's websites like Fiverr where you could put your talents to use and get paid. where we live in a gig economy where you could Uber Eats, DoorDash in order to get the funds and things of that nature. Number one is always use your talents, create a side hustle, and get paid for your service. Babysitting, that would never go out of play. Dog walking as well. Get creative. Get creative, get paid for the service so we could fund our beginner's emergency fund. Step one is usually what we can do offensively. It's like football, basketball. The offense, you're always trying to get the touchdown, you're always trying to score a basket. And now it's time, here's something that you could do. If offense is not your thing, here's something that you could do defensively. Reduce your expenses, whether it's eating out, shopping, transportation. Find ways to reduce your expenses in order to use or in order to save that extra money for your beginner's emergency funds. If you eat out 5 times a week, drop it to 2. Eat at home. Those 3 times that you normally eat out, put it towards the beginner's emergency fund. Transportation, gas. You always going out, always driving around, driving all over the place. Maybe it's time to stay home for the next month. And that extra money that you'll spend on gas, put it towards your beginner's emergency fund. Clothing, shopping, things of that nature. Just reduce your expenses in order to get the beginner's emergency fund. Because trust me, once we get deep rooted and get our foundation down, we'll be able to do whatever we want because we're going to have the means and the funds and the resources to be able to do so we can live in abundance. You see how everything just tie together? Last but not least, tip number 3, get rid of some things. I am sure there are some things in your home, some things that you have that you don't use anymore, don't wear anymore, don't even want. It's just sitting there collecting dust. And I can give you a prime example for me. 2020, when the pandemic hit, we was all in the house. Wasn't much to do in the house. So what I did was I bought me a Nintendo Switch. I wanted to play Mario Kart. I wanted to play Pokemon. I could count on 2 hands, maybe 1 hand, how many times I've used the Nintendo Switch since the pandemic. Y'all, it's collecting dust. And the crazy thing is, I overpaid for it. It retails at $300. I bought it for $400. Pandemic, they was out of stock, so I was willing to pay that. And now, it's just collecting dust, so I could easily sell it for $150, $200, and boom, I'm already quarter of the way to getting my beginner's emergency fund established. So, like I say, get creative. Let's get this money. Let's get this beginner's emergency fund funded so we can have that cushion between us and start our foundation. Because we're building a house. We're building a financial house. And right now, we got to lay the foundation. We got to put up the walls. We got to put up the roof. Then we got to go ahead and furnish our house. But right now, we can't do that without no foundation. So let's go ahead and get the concrete ready. And our beginner's emergency fund is step 1 of that foundation. So now that I told you the importance of emergency fund, what to store your emergency fund, what's a beginner's emergency fund, I gave you some ideas of an emergency fund. Let's talk about when we start putting money in our emergency fund. What do we consider an emergency? Because we're going to be tempted. Some inconvenience is going to pop up in our life, and it may be an emergency. It may be a real emergency, or it may be an inconvenience disguised as an emergency, which we think is an emergency. And now we're using our emergency fund for something that could possibly have waited. So it is a 3-step process in order to be able to use your emergency fund. And these are 3 questions you have to ask yourself. Is it urgent? We're going to use cars. We're going to use a car. I don't know. I'm always using a car example. I don't know if I have a lot of car problems, or if cars are out to get us and always want to break down when we're trying to get our life together. So we're going to use a car. Is it urgent? Let's say your tire goes flat. Is that urgent? Yes or no? Second question is it necessary? Yes or no? Third question is it unexpected? Yes or no? You answer yes to all 3 of these questions, more than likely it's an emergency. If you answer no to all 3 questions, definitely not an emergency. If you answer 2 yeses and a no, it may be an emergency. It may be something you wait out. That's something you're going to have to determine. But that gray area is something that you really have to think about and consider. So Tire example. You're driving on I-4 or driving on the freeway, tire blowout. Is it urgent? More than likely, yeah, because it's happening right now and you need a new tire. Is it necessary? Definitely necessary. You're on the freeway. Is it unexpected? Definitely unexpected. So with your tire blowing out, definitely is an emergency. Another example, I guess, is more personal to me is tuition. Tuition to me is important. You know, I need funds in order to continue my education. So is it urgent? Depending on the day of the week, it might not be urgent. Because, you know, when school starts, they give you 2 weeks for the first deadline. Then you can get, if you do a payment plan, you get an additional month or two. So I don't think it's urgent because that month or two is out. Is it necessary? Most definitely necessary. So we have no for urgent, yes for necessary. And is it unexpected? It's not unexpected. So for me, I wouldn't pay for my tuition from my emergency fund because that's truly not an emergency. I would use other ways such as getting the money out of my budget, working extra hours in order to get the money for the tuition. So those are the rules and questions that you have to ask yourself when it comes to, is it okay to spend money from my emergency fund? And let's say you do have to go into your emergency fund, something popped up, it's a true emergency and you do have to go into your emergency fund, don't beat yourself up. That's what the emergency fund is for, to cover life unexpected events, to cover the actual emergencies. If you do spend some of your money, stop what you're doing, get back to your $1,000 because $1,000 is going to be our baseline of our foundation. So get back to your $1,000 by stopping what you're doing, throw some money back in there until you get back to $1,000 and then get back into whatever you was doing prior, whether you were paying off debt or trying to get to 3 to 6 months or whatever the case may be. You're going to get back that way. You're going to get back there. But it's okay to spend some money for true emergencies. Please don't beat yourself up. Keep going. Just know it's not about how you fall. It's about how you get back up. So with that being said, I told you guys I'm going to do this with you. So I have my phone and I have this account. And currently right now it has $2.38 in it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it has $2.38 in it. This is at a different bank outside of my primary banking. And what I'm going to do is get this to $1,002.38. I'm in this with you guys, hand in hand, step by step. So I'm going to get my $1,000. Make sure you get your $1,000. And I appreciate you for tapping in. Thank you for signing in. Thank you for logging in. Thank you for watching episode 2 of the Live in Abundance series by your boy, the Modern Day Moses. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Modern Day Moses with 3 S's because it's about the Trinity. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post bell notification. And I can't wait to see you next week for another video. Peace out.